The vast observation deck of the Crithian command vessel Eternal Dominion stretched across 3 levels of gleaming metal and crystal displays. Ambassador Veltar, his ceremonial robes shimmering with authority, stood before the central holographic projector. His scaled hands moved through the air with practiced precision, calling up data streams that painted the darkness with amber light. "Begin the briefing," he commanded, his voice carrying the weight of centuries of galactic conquest. Science Officer Zexty stepped forward, her 4 arms working different control panels simultaneously. Each limb moved with mechanical precision, pulling up star charts, biological data, and technological assessments. "The target species designates itself as human," she announced, her voice clinical and detached. "Population approximately 8.7 billion. Concentrated primarily on the 3rd planet of a yellow dwarf star system. Their technological development," inquired military advisor Thokron, his massive frame shifting in the specially reinforced chair designed to accommodate his species' bulk. His predatory eyes gleamed with the anticipation of easy conquest. "Primitive by galactic standards," Zexty replied, manipulating the hologram to show crude human spacecraft. "They achieved rudimentary interstellar travel only recently. Chemical propulsion systems, basic fusion reactors, electromagnetic shields. That wouldn't stop a child's plasma toy." Behavioral analyst Mayelin tilted her elongated head, studying the psychological profiles scrolling past her station. Her large, dark eyes reflected the data streams as she absorbed thousands of behavioral patterns. "Standard pack-bonding species. They form small tribal groups for mutual protection and resource sharing. Average group size ranges from 3 to 12 individuals. Nothing particularly noteworthy." Tactical expert Jervin tapped his clawed fingers against the metal briefing table, each strike creating a soft, metallic ping. "Our preliminary force projection models indicate complete system subjugation within 72 standard hours. Estimated resistance ... minimal at best." Communications Specialist Erfak, her tentacles weaving through her translation matrix, added her analysis. "Their languages number in the thousands, but they've developed crude, universal translation protocols. Most communication appears to be emotional rather than logical. They frequently make decisions based on irrational concepts like honor and loyalty." Ambassador Veltar nodded slowly, his satisfaction evident. "Excellent. The High Council will be most pleased with our efficiency. The humans possess several systems rich in rare minerals that will fuel our expansion for generations. There is one curious note, Zexty mentioned almost as an afterthought. Their homeworld classification registers as Category 9 on the habitability scale." Jervin looked up from his tactical displays. "Category 9. That's unusually harsh for a species that achieved spaceflight, indeed. Extreme weather patterns, unstable geology, predatory ecosystem, high radiation from their star, frequent asteroid impacts, and atmospheric instability. Most species would have been extinct within a few millennia on such a world." Mayolin's head tilted further, a sign of confusion among her species. How did they survive long enough to develop technology? Adaptation, presumably. They're evolutionary. Records show rapid physical and behavioral changes in response to environmental pressures. Nothing we haven't seen before, simply more accelerated. Thokron dismissed the concern with a wave of his massive clawed hand. Irrelevant. Survival adaptations rarely translate to military capability. If anything, their harsh world has probably made them more desperate and thus more likely to surrender quickly when faced with superior force. What none of them mentioned, what none of them even remembered, were the old stories. Tales passed down through the early generations of galactic expansion, whispered warnings from species that had encountered something ... different. Stories about worlds so hostile that they created beings unlike anything else in the galaxy. Creatures that fought with desperate fury when cornered, who turned everything around them into weapons, who refused to acknowledge defeat even when death was certain. But those were ancient myths from a more primitive time, when the galaxy was young and spacefaring species were fewer. No modern, rational being gave credence to such folklore. Begin Phase 1 operations, Ambassador Veltar commanded. We shall start with their outermost settlements and work inward. Standard protocol: demand, surrender, accept tribute, establish governance. Any questions? There were none. After all, they had conquered 47 species using these exact methods. Humans would be number 40-8. The first indication that something was wrong came 18 hours into the operation, when the Advanced Reconnaissance Squadron reached the outer edge of human space. Mining Station Bravo 7 orbited a lifeless asteroid, extracting rare metals for humanity's growing space infrastructure. The station housed exactly 43 humans, according to the pre-assault intelligence. Captain Keaton of the Crithian raider vessel Swift Death opened a standard surrender demand channel. Attention, human facility. You are hereby ordered to surrender immediately and prepare for occupation. Resistance will result in complete destruction of your installation. The response came from Station Commander Sarah Chen. Her voice transmitted clearly across the void. There was no panic in her tone, no fear, just steady professionalism. This is Mining Station Bravo 7. You are trespassing in human territorial space. Please identify yourselves and state your intentions. Keaton felt a flicker of irritation. The script was simple. Demand surrender, receive compliance, move to the next target. Human, your technological capabilities are insufficient to resist. Our forces, surrender immediately and you will be relocated safely. Negative, this is human space, and we don't recognize your authority here. Withdraw immediately, or we will consider your presence a hostile act. In the command center of the Eternal Dominion, tactical expert Jervin watched the exchange with growing confusion. The station's defensive capabilities are negligible. 6 mining lasers rated for asteroid processing, basic meteor shields, no military weapon systems. Their rational response should be immediate capitulation. Science officer, Sexty monitored the energy readings from the station. I'm detecting some unusual activity. They appear to be modifying their equipment. Commander Chen's voice came through the communications array again, but this transmission was directed to her crew. All personnel to emergency stations. Implement wildfire protocol. Repeat, implement wildfire protocol immediately. What is wildfire protocol? Myolin wondered aloud. They found out 37 minutes later. The humans had converted their entire mining operation into an improvised weapons system. Asteroid processing equipment designed to cut through solid rock became precision beam weapons. Magnetic or separators were reconfigured as mass drivers, launching chunks of processed metal at tremendous velocity. The station's fusion reactor was pushed beyond safe parameters, creating a massive energy spike that confused Crithian sensors. Impossible, whispered Jervin as he watched the tactical display. They're using industrial equipment as military hardware. The conversion rate is it should take weeks to accomplish such modifications. But the most shocking moment came when Commander Chen made her final decision. As Krithian raiders closed in, she activated the station's self-destruct sequence. Not the standard evacuation protocol, but a complete overload of the fusion reactor designed to create maximum damage to nearby vessels. All stations, this is Commander Chen. Wildfire protocol is now active, transmitting all tactical data to Colonial Defense Network. Remember Thermopylae. Remember the Alamo. Today we show them what happens when you threaten humanity. The explosion that followed destroyed mining station Bravo 7 completely. But the blast wave and electromagnetic pulse disabled 2 Krithian vessels and damaged 5 others. More importantly, in the final seconds before destruction, the station transmitted everything they had learned about Krithian capabilities to the human. Colonial Network. Science Officer Zexty stared at her readings in disbelief. They destroyed their own installation to damage our ships. The energy release was deliberately maximized for offensive effect. No rational species would sacrifice themselves so readily for such minimal tactical advantage. 43 humans, Thokron muttered, his warrior's instincts troubled by what he had witnessed. 43 humans held off a full raider squadron and inflicted significant casualties. This was not in our projections. Ambassador Veltar maintained his composure, though privately he felt the first stirrings of unease. An anomaly. One isolated group of extremists. Statistical outliers exist in every species. The next target will prove more reasonable. But the next target was New Geneva Colony, home to 12,000 humans spread across 3 continents of a partially terraformed world. When the Krithian fleet arrived 48 hours later, they expected the quick capitulation that their overwhelming force projection models guaranteed. Instead, they found a world that had transformed itself into a fortress. Colony Governor Marcus Webb appeared on the main communication screen, his weathered face and steel-grey eyes radiating quiet determination. Behind him, the Colonial Command Center buzzed with activity as humans of all ages worked frantically at control stations. I'm Governor Webb of New Geneva Colony. We received mining station Bravo 7's final transmission. We've been expecting you. Communications specialist Turvak's tentacles writhed in confusion as she analyzed the colonial network. Ambassador, this is unprecedented. The colony has achieved complete militarization in less than 48 hours. They have constructed defensive emplacements using farming equipment. Civilian transports have been modified with weapon systems. Even their weather control network has been converted for military applications. Science Officers XD pulled up orbital surveillance data. They've created defensive positions using their own infrastructure. Agricultural combines have been converted into mobile artillery platforms. Atmospheric processors are being used to create obscuring clouds and toxic barriers. The entire colonial grid has been rewired to support military operations. Behavioral analyst Mayalina's voice carried genuine alarm. They are exhibiting unprecedented coordination. Individual families are sharing tactical information instantaneously. Children are being evacuated through pre-prepared tunnel networks while adults assume combat positions. This level of species-wide emergency response was not indicated in our initial assessments. Governor Webb's image remained steady on the screen. We're not looking for a fight, but we won't back down from one either. You've attacked our people, and that's something we take very seriously. Last chance to withdraw peacefully, Thokron's patience finally snapped. Enough of this delay. Deploy ground forces and orbital bombardment platforms. We will show them the price of defiance. The battle for New Geneva lasted 22 hours and fundamentally challenged every assumption. The Crithians held about human capabilities. The colonial defenders fought with a coordination that should have required months of military training. Farmers used their knowledge of local terrain to create killing fields. Engineers rigged industrial equipment to explode when Crithian forces approached. Even the colony's medical staff participated, not just treating wounded, but developing chemical agents from medical supplies that disrupted Crithian sensory equipment. Captain Lisa Harrison, the colony's security chief, coordinated the defense from a command bunker that had been constructed from mining equipment and prefabricated shelters. Sector 7, fall back to prepared positions. Let them think they're winning, then hit them with the welcoming committee. Lieutenant Jake Morrison, barely 21 years old and fresh from Earth's colonial academy, provided tactical innovation that baffled Crithian analysts. Captain, what if we use the irrigation system to flood the eastern approach? The water will conduct electricity from our power grid, and their armor isn't insulated for electrical attacks. Brilliant, Jake. Make it happen. The improvised electrical trap caught an entire Crithian assault battalion, their advanced armor becoming a liability, as electrical current coursed through their ranks. But perhaps most disturbing to the Crithian observers was the behavior of Dr. Elena Vasquez, the colony's chief medical officer. When the battle reached its most desperate phase, with Crithian forces breaching the colony's outer defenses, she established a field hospital in the middle of the combat zone. "Bring them in," Dr. Vasquez called to her medical team as they carried wounded combatants to safety. Doesn't matter which side they're on. Medical oath doesn't distinguish between species. Nurse Patricia Wong looked up from treating a wounded colonist. "Doctor, we have 3 enemy combatants with severe injuries. Should we... Treat them," Dr. Vasquez replied, without hesitation, "same as anyone else. Pain is pain, regardless of who's feeling it." This behavior pattern completely confounded the Crithian command structure. Mayolin watched the medical bay feeds with growing bewilderment. They are expending precious medical resources to heal their enemies during active combat. The probability models indicate this should never occur. It represents a tactical disadvantage with no corresponding benefit. Unless, Jervin said slowly, their concept of tactical advantage includes factors we don't understand. The turning point came when the humans demonstrated their most terrifying capability, rapid adaptation under pressure. When Crithian energy weapons proved superior to human kinetic weapons, the defenders didn't retreat or surrender. Instead, they innovated. Engineer Sarah Martinez discovered that reflective panels from solar collectors could deflect energy beams when positioned at specific angles. Colony engineering to all defensive positions. We can beat their fancy laser guns with mirrors. Salvage all reflective materials and position them at 45-degree angles to their approach vectors. Within hours, the colony's defenders had created an improvised defense network that turned the Crithians' advanced weaponry against them. Water from the colony's reserves created steam barriers that diffused energy beams. Metal debris from destroyed equipment became electromagnetic chaff that confused targeting systems. Young Lieutenant Morrison provided the innovation that ultimately forced the Crithian retreat. "Governor, what if we use the seismic charges from the mining operation to create a controlled avalanche? The rocky terrain would funnel them into the valley, right into our crossfire zone." Governor Webb studied the tactical display with the eye of someone who had fought in 3 colonial conflicts. "That's actually brilliant, son. Do it." The avalanche buried half the Crithian ground forces and destroyed several atmospheric craft. But more than the tactical victory, It was the speed of human adaptation that truly terrified the Crithian observers. Science Officer Zexty reviewed the battle analysis with growing concern. They modified their tactics 17 times during the engagement. Each modification was an improvement over the previous approach. Their learning curve is exponential. Most troubling, added Mayelin, is their psychological resilience. Standard doctrine suggests that casualties should reduce combat effectiveness through demoralization. Instead, human casualties appear to increase the determination of survivors. The evidence was undeniable. When colonial defender Tom Chen was killed by Crithian fire, his death sparked a coordinated counterattack that reclaimed 2 kilometers of territory. When the colony's main power grid was damaged, the humans switched to backup systems they had apparently prepared in advance. They fight as if defeat is not an option, Thokron observed, his warrior's pride genuinely troubled. Even when facing certain death, they continue seeking ways to inflict damage. The Crithian withdrawal from New Geneva was not a retreat in the traditional sense. It was a strategic recognition that the cost of victory would exceed acceptable parameters. But the humans had achieved something more significant than tactical success. They had proven that they could not be easily conquered. Ambassador Velt called an emergency council session after reviewing the complete tactical reports. The atmosphere in the command chamber was heavy with implications that none of them wanted to voice. Gentlemen, our initial assessments appear to have been incomplete, he began carefully. The human species demonstrates capabilities that were not apparent in our preliminary surveys. Thokron's massive frame shifted uncomfortably. They adapt to our tactics in real time. Each engagement produces new countermeasures and innovative solutions we had not anticipated. This is contrary to standard conquest protocols. Agreed, Mayelin added, her large eyes reflecting deep worry. Their psychological profiles suggest they become more dangerous when threatened, not more compliant. This pattern is highly unusual among galactic species. Science Officer Zexty activated her holographic displays, showing detailed analyses of both engagements. Their technological adaptation rate exceeds anything in our databases. They are converting civilian infrastructure to military applications with unprecedented speed and efficiency. Communications specialist Turvak's tentacles writhed with agitation. Most concerning is their information sharing. Every engagement is transmitted to their entire network instantaneously. They are learning from our tactics faster than we can adapt our own strategies. Jervin hesitated before speaking, his tactical mind wrestling with disturbing possibilities. Military advisor, I have been reviewing the ancient combat protocols. There are references to certain species classifications that require special consideration. Perhaps we should consult the historical databases before proceeding with full-scale operations. Ancient protocols. Thokron's voice carried dismissive irritation. Those are myths and legends from the early expansion period. Superstitious nonsense has no place in modern military planning. Perhaps Jervin replied carefully, but the tactical patterns we're observing match certain described behaviors from those historical records. Ambassador Velta made the decision that would haunt the Crithian Empire for generations. We will proceed with overwhelming force deployment. Whatever unusual capabilities the humans possess, they cannot withstand the full might of a Crithian battle fleet. Deploy the 7th Fleet. End this quickly before they can adapt further. But as the massive Crithian battle fleet approached Earth's solar system, they encountered something that would fundamentally reshape their understanding of warfare itself. The humans had not been idle during the previous conflicts. What the Crithians had interpreted as desperate last stands had actually been intelligence-gathering operations of unprecedented sophistication. Admiral Janet Hayes commanded the human defense fleet from the bridge of the UN's Defiance, humanity's newest and most advanced vessel. Around her, the bridge crew worked with calm efficiency despite facing odds that should have guaranteed their destruction. Fleet Status Report, Admiral Hayes requested, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had commanded warships for 30 years. Captain Robert Torres, her tactical officer, consulted his displays. 47 combat vessels operational, Admiral, 23 destroyers, 18 frigates, 4 cruisers, and 2 battleships, were outnumbered approximately 8-1. Defensive platforms. All orbital stations are online and armed. Lunar Base reports full operational readiness. Mars Colonial Guard is standing by as reserves. Admiral Hayes nodded grimly. All ships, this is Admiral Hayes. Today we show them what happens when you threaten Earth. Remember, we're not just fighting for our world. We're fighting for every human colony, every space station, every mining outpost they've attacked. The response from the human fleet crackled across communication channels. Voices from dozens of ships representing every nation and colony in human space. Copy that, Admiral. For Bravo 7, for New Geneva, for all of them. The Crithians expected primitive spacecraft employing basic tactical formations. Instead, they faced a coordinated defense that had learned from every previous engagement and incorporated those lessons into a comprehensive battle doctrine. Human ships moved in patterns that seemed chaotic but proved devastatingly effective. They used their own sun's gravity to slingshot attacks from unexpected vectors. Asteroid mining platforms had been converted into kinetic weapons that launched chunks of metal at relativistic speeds. Commander Rachel Kim, chief engineer of the Defense Fleet, had spent months developing countermeasures for Crithian technology. Admiral, resonance torpedoes are performing beyond specifications. Enemy shield effectiveness is down by 68%. Outstanding work, Commander. All ships, you heard her. Press the advantage. Captain Torres piloted his fighter wing through the Crithian formation with precision that defied their tactical computers. Dragon Squadron, implement pattern Omega. Use the debris field from the asteroid belt as cover. Dragon 2, confirmed. These aliens picked the wrong species to mess with. Dragon 5, watch your 6. Incoming fighters at Mark II and Gut. Them, Dragon 5. Nobody touches my wingman. But what truly terrified the Crithian observers was the human response when the battle seemed lost. Instead of surrendering or retreating, they regrouped and implemented what they called the Gambit. Admiral Hayes opened a fleet-wide channel as Crithian reinforcements arrived. All ships, all stations. This is Admiral Hayes. If we're going down, we're taking as many of them with us as possible. Every ship that can still fire, every person who can still fight. Give them everything we've got. The dying human vessels didn't retreat or call for quarter. They flew directly into Crithian formations, their overloaded reactors creating devastating explosions that cascaded through enemy fleets. Damaged fighters became guided missiles, their pilots staying at the controls until impact, even escape. Pods were rigged with explosive charges, turning into improvised weapons. Science Officer Sexty watched the tactical display with growing horror. They are using their own destruction as a weapon. Their damaged vessels are becoming more dangerous, not less. This defies every principle of rational combat behavior. Look at this, Jervin called, highlighting a section of the battle. That human destroyer just lost main power, but instead of withdrawing, it's moving to ram one of our cruisers. The UN's Intrepid, under Captain Maria Santos, had taken critical damage from Crythian fire. Her ship was dying, life support failing, weapons offline. But rather than surrender, she made a final decision that exemplified human military doctrine. All hands, this is the captain. We've given them a hell of a fight, but we're not done yet. Rig the reactor for overload and set collision course for that cruiser. If we're going out, we're taking some of them with us. Her crew responded without hesitation. Aye, Captain. Reactor overload in 60 seconds. It's been an honor serving with you all. The Intrepid's final explosion took out a Crythian heavy cruiser and damage to escort vessels. But more than the tactical impact, it was the psychological effect that devastated Crythian morale. They embraced death as a tactical option. Mayallen observed, her voice filled with species-deep dread. This is not normal behavior. This is not rational behavior. Medical frigate, UNS Mercy, under the command of Dr. James Patterson, established emergency treatment centers even as the battle raged around them. When a disabled Crythian vessel was detected venting atmosphere, Dr. Patterson made a decision that epitomized human complexity. This is Medical 6 to Admiral Hayes. We have a disabled enemy vessel with crew in distress, requesting permission to render assistance. Admiral Hayes' response came without hesitation, even as her own ship took heavy fire. Permission granted. Doctor, save who you can save. The rescue operation took place under direct enemy fire, with human medical teams risking their lives to save Crythian enemies, who had been trying to kill them moments earlier. Dr. Patterson's team evacuated 47 Crythian crew members, providing medical treatment without regard for species or allegiance. Why? Gasped Subcommander Velkit, a wounded Crythian officer, as human medics treated his injuries. Why do you save us? We are your enemies. Dr. Patterson looked up from his medical scanner, his face kind despite the exhaustion of 18 hours of combat surgery. Because that's what we do. We save lives, all lives. This single act of compassion did more to confuse the Crythian command structure than any military tactic. Behavioral analyst Mahallan stared at the rescue operation, feeds in complete bewilderment. Ambassador, they are risking mission success to save individual enemy combatants. This behavior pattern has no precedent in our databases. They are simultaneously the most violent and most compassionate species we have encountered. When the battle finally ended, after 36 hours of continuous combat, both sides had taken massive casualties, but the humans had achieved something that military analysts would study for centuries. They had fought the Crythian 7th Fleet to a standstill and forced their withdrawal from the solar system. More importantly, they had demonstrated capabilities that fundamentally challenged every assumption about warfare itself. The Emergency Council session convened immediately after the fleet's retreat to a safe distance. The atmosphere in the command chamber was heavy with implications that would reshape galactic politics. Ambassador Veltar spoke first, his voice carrying the weight of dawning realization. Gentlemen, we have made a grave error in our assessment of this species. Our intelligence was not merely incomplete, it was fundamentally flawed. Thokron, his warrior pride deeply wounded, reluctantly acknowledged the truth that his tactical mind could no longer deny. They fight like no other species we have encountered. They use everything as a weapon. Their own lives, their environment, even their compassion becomes a tactical advantage. Most disturbing is their rapid adaptation rate, added Science Officer Zexty. Each engagement showed measurable improvement in their capabilities. Their learning curve is not linear, it's exponential. If we had continued fighting, they would have eventually surpassed our technology through pure innovation. Communications specialist Turvak's analysis was equally troubling. Their information sharing extends beyond tactical data. They are emotionally bonding over shared combat experiences. Each battle creates stronger unit cohesion rather than breaking down their morale. Behavioral analyst Malin accessed the historical databases that had been dismissed as irrelevant folklore. I have been reviewing the ancient protocols that tactical expert Jervin mentioned. The old stories speak of a species classification beyond our standard categories. They called them Deathworld Guardians. Deathworld Guardians. Ambassador Veltar leaned forward intently. Species that evolved on planets so hostile that survival required unprecedented adaptability and aggression. The legends say such beings cannot be conquered through conventional means. They can only be befriended, avoided, or destroyed completely. There is no middle ground. Jervin's tactical analysis confirmed their worst fears. If the humans had been given more time to prepare, if they had achieved full military mobilization, our projections indicate they would have been capable of offensive operations against our core systems within 2 standard years. The silence that followed was broken by Thokron's grudging admission. No wonder the ancient races spoke of such beings with fear and respect. To fight them is to strengthen them. To defeat them is to teach them. To destroy them partially. He paused, understanding the full implications. To destroy them partially is to create an enemy that will never forgive and never forget. The mathematical models are clear, Zexty added. Complete extermination of the human species would require resources equivalent to our entire military capability for a minimum of 50 years. The economic cost would cripple our empire, leaving us vulnerable to other species. And if we failed to achieve complete extermination, Malin concluded, the survivors would eventually develop capabilities that could threaten the entire galaxy. Ambassador Veltar made the decision that would reshape galactic politics for millennia to come. We will recommend immediate cessation of hostilities and formal alliance negotiations. The humans have proven they cannot be conquered through conventional means, but Ambassador Jervin protested. The High Council expected easy victory and new territory for expansion. How do we explain this failure? This was not a failure, Veltar replied firmly. This was the most important intelligence operation in our species' history. We have discovered something that could either be our greatest ally or our most dangerous enemy. The Council will receive our complete tactical analysis and threat assessment. They will understand that humans represent something far more valuable as allies than as conquered subjects. Science Officer Zexty activated the long-range communications array, preparing priority transmission to the Crithian High Council. How shall we classify the human threat level? Ambassador Veltar considered the question carefully, remembering the ancient warnings that had been dismissed as mere legend. When humans fought, they didn't just seek victory in the immediate tactical sense. They fought to ensure such threats could never rise again. They learned from every encounter, adapted to every challenge, and turned their very survival instinct into a weapon of unparalleled effectiveness. Classification... Veltar paused, choosing his words with the gravity they deserved. Maximum threat level, if hostile. Maximum strategic value, if allied. Recommend immediate diplomatic contact and formal alliance negotiations. Under no circumstances should any Crithian force engage human territories without explicit High Council authorization and overwhelming superiority. Communications specialist Turvak added her own analysis to the transmission. Personal recommendation, approach. All interactions with humans under the assumption that they are recording and analyzing everything for future tactical advantage. They view every encounter as a learning opportunity, as the command vessel eternal. Dominion began its journey back to Crithian space. The senior staff continued reviewing battle footage and tactical analyses. Each examination revealed new aspects of human capability that had been overlooked in real time. "There is one more thing," Malin said quietly, her voice carrying a note of profound concern. "Our engagement represented less than 1% of human military capability. They have billions more individuals, thousands of colonies, and industrial capacity we barely glimpsed. The implications hung in the air like a deadly toxin. They had encountered humanity at its weakest, most unprepared state. They had faced isolated outposts, single colonies, and a hastily assembled defense fleet that had been outnumbered 8-1, and still, the humans had fought them to a standstill. What happens, Thokron wondered aloud, when they have time to truly prepare, when they mobilize their full industrial capacity, when they turn their entire species toward military advancement? What happens, Jervin added with growing dread, when they develop technologies specifically designed to counter our advantages? What happens, Zexty concluded, when they decide that defense is insufficient and that offensive action is necessary? Number one answered. No one wanted to contemplate the implications. The final analysis reports painted a picture that challenged everything the Crithian Empire thought it knew about warfare. Humans didn't just fight to win individual battles. They fought to ensure their species' survival through adaptation, innovation, and an apparently unlimited capacity for tactical evolution. They had turned mining equipment into weapons, civilian infrastructure into fortifications, and even their own deaths into tactical advantages. Most terrifyingly, they had done all of this while simultaneously demonstrating unprecedented compassion for their enemies. Science. Officer Zexty made the final log entry as the human solar system disappeared behind them. Personal note for the historical record. The ancient warnings were accurate. Some species cannot be conquered through conventional military action. They can only be respected, befriended, or avoided entirely. Humanity represents the most dangerous species classification in known galactic history. They adapt, they endure, they innovate under pressure. They never surrender when their core values are threatened. And most terrifying of all, they remember everything. The last transmission from Earth reached them just as they entered hyperspace preparation. It was Admiral Hayes, her voice carrying across the void with quiet determination that somehow managed to be both offering peace and promising war. To all species currently listening to this transmission, humanity extends an offer of peace and cooperation to any civilization willing to coexist respectfully with our colonies and territories. We seek knowledge, trade, and mutual understanding. With the galactic community, the message paused, and when it resumed, the tone carried an undertone that made even seasoned Crithian warriors uncomfortable. However, let this message also serve as a warning to any who would threaten human lives or human worlds. We have shown mercy today because we believe in the possibility of peace. Do not mistake mercy for weakness. Do not mistake our willingness to negotiate for inability to fight. We will defend ourselves, our colonies, our families, and our way of life against any threat, regardless of its origin or its strength. We are willing to die for what we believe in. Are you willing to die for what you believe in? Because if you threaten us, that question will be answered definitively. As the Crithian command vessel jumped to hyperspace, carrying with it the most important intelligence report in their species' history, one thought echoed through the minds of every officer present: the ancient legends about certain types of worlds, certain types of species, had been true. No one had believed the legends about humans until it was too late, and now, as the galactic community would soon learn, they had awakened something that would reshape the balance of power among the stars. Something that could be their greatest ally or their most implacable enemy. The choice, they realized with growing dread, was no longer entirely theirs to make.